How does a boy born in Uganda, the son of a famous scholar and a world-renowned filmmaker, grow up to become one of the most talked-about young politicians in New York? From immigrant roots to the halls of power, Zohran Mamdani has built his career fighting for tenants, workers, and ordinary people struggling to survive in one of the world's most expensive cities. But his rise hasn't been simple. It's a story of activism, controversy, grassroots movements, and a new generation trying to reshape American politics. In this video, we uncover the full story of Zohran Mamdani, his childhood, his struggles, his political journey, and the ideas that made him a rising voice in the United States. Zohran Kwame Mamdani was born on October 18, 1991, in Kampala, Uganda, into a family deeply rooted in intellectual thought, storytelling, and political awareness, circumstances that would eventually shape his worldview and influence his path toward public service in the United States. His father, Mahmoud Mamdani, is a renowned political scientist and academic known for his scholarship on colonialism, African politics, and global power structures, while his mother, Mira Nair, is an internationally acclaimed filmmaker celebrated for movies that explore identity, migration, and cultural complexity, and growing up within such an environment exposed Zohran from an early age to conversations about justice, culture, inequality, and the power of storytelling to challenge social norms. Yet his life did not begin in the United States but in East Africa, a region whose colonial history, political struggles, and cultural richness provided the backdrop to his earliest years. When Zohran was still a child, his family moved several times between continents, reflecting the global nature of his parents' careers, and these early experiences of migration, cultural transition, and shifting identities would later become central to his political outlook, giving him a deep understanding of the immigrant experience and the social barriers many people face while trying to build stable lives in new countries. And eventually his family settled in New York City, where Zohran would spend much of his formative years absorbing the complex social landscape of one of the most diverse cities in the world. Growing up in Queens, he attended the Bronx High School of Science for a period before continuing his education and later enrolling at Bowdoin College in Maine, where he studied Africana Studies, a field that allowed him to explore the historical and political dynamics shaping Black communities, colonial legacies, and systems of inequality around the world. And it was during these college years that Zohran Mamdani began to more consciously develop the political values that would define his public career, becoming involved in student organizing and activism focused on racial justice, economic inequality, and social reform. Bowdoin College, known for encouraging intellectual curiosity and civic engagement, became an environment where Mamdani could combine academic learning with practical activism, participating in campaigns and discussions addressing issues such as police accountability, immigration rights, and workers' protections. And by the time he graduated, he had developed not only a strong academic understanding of structural inequality but also a commitment to community-based political action, a philosophy that would later shape his approach as an elected official. After completing his studies, Mamdani returned to New York City, where he worked as a housing counselor and community organizer, assisting low-income residents who were facing eviction or struggling with rising housing costs. And this work proved transformative because it placed him directly in contact with individuals and families experiencing the harsh realities of the city's housing crisis, including tenants who feared losing their homes due to skyrocketing rents, inadequate legal protections, or complex landlord disputes. And witnessing these struggles firsthand convinced Mamdani that systemic change was necessary to address inequality rather than relying solely on individual assistance programs. During this time, he became involved with grassroots political movements in New York, particularly those advocating for tenant protections, public investment in social services, and stronger labor rights. And he gradually gained recognition among progressive activists who saw him as a passionate organizer capable of translating policy ideas into real-world community engagement. And in 2020, he made the decision that would transform his career by running for the New York State Assembly in District 36, which covers Astoria in Queens, an area known for its cultural diversity, working-class communities, and vibrant immigrant population. Mamdani's campaign was notable not only because he was relatively young and new to electoral politics, but also because it was built around grassroots organizing rather than traditional political fundraising structures, relying heavily on volunteers, small donations, and direct community outreach. and his platform emphasized issues that resonated strongly with local residents, including rent stabilization, stronger tenant protections, expanded healthcare access, better public transportation funding, and economic policies designed to reduce inequality. The campaign also reflected a broader generational shift in American politics, particularly within urban centers, where younger voters and activists were increasingly demanding bold solutions to long-standing social challenges such as housing affordability, climate change, and systemic racism. And Mamdani's message connected with these voters by presenting politics not as an abstract debate but as a practical tool for improving everyday life. After months of organizing and campaigning, Zohran Mamdani won the Democratic primary, a critical victory in a district where Democratic candidates historically dominate general elections, and he went on to win the general election later that year, officially becoming a member of the New York State Assembly and representing thousands of residents in Queens, a moment that symbolized not only personal achievement but also the growing influence of progressive grassroots movements within local American politics. As an elected official, Mamdani quickly established himself as a vocal advocate for policies aimed at addressing economic inequality, particularly those affecting housing and workers' rights, and he aligned himself with a broader progressive coalition within New York politics that sought to challenge traditional policy frameworks and push for more ambitious reforms, including stronger rent regulations, expanded public housing investment, and improved protections for tenants facing eviction, issues that were especially important in a city where housing costs have long been among the highest in the United States. In legislative debates and public speeches, he often emphasized the moral argument for government intervention in markets that fail to provide basic stability for ordinary people, arguing that housing should be treated as a fundamental human need rather than purely a commodity shaped by profit-driven development, and his ability to communicate these ideas clearly helped him build support among younger voters and community activists, who felt that traditional political leadership had not done enough to address structural inequality. Beyond housing policy, Mamdani also became known for advocating transportation improvements, including more reliable subway and bus services in outer borough neighborhoods that often experience longer commute times than residents in Manhattan, and he argued that transportation equity was directly connected to economic opportunity because workers without reliable transit access face additional barriers when seeking employment or education. His work in the Assembly also included efforts to address climate change, support renewable energy initiatives, and promote policies that reduce environmental harm in urban communities, reflecting a broader understanding that environmental justice and economic justice are closely interconnected. At the same time, Mamdani's political identity has often been discussed in relation to his background as the son of immigrants and his upbringing within a family that engaged deeply with global issues of colonialism, culture, and political power, and he has frequently spoken about how these influences shaped his awareness of international struggles for justice and equality, though his focus as a legislator remains primarily on the everyday concerns of his constituents in Queens. His communication style, which combines academic clarity with accessible language, has made him a recognizable figure not only in local politics but also within national discussions about the future direction of progressive movements in the United States, and supporters often view him as part of a new generation of political leaders seeking to reshape American policy around principles of social equity, economic fairness, and democratic participation. Critics, meanwhile, sometimes argue that his policy proposals are overly ambitious or financially challenging to implement, reflecting the broader ideological debates that define contemporary American politics. Yet, regardless of these disagreements, Mamdani's presence in the political arena represents an important example of how grassroots activism can evolve into electoral leadership. His story illustrates the journey of an individual shaped by global perspectives, immigrant experiences, academic inquiry, and local community struggles, all converging into a political career focused on challenging inequality and advocating for systemic reform. And as his career continues to develop, many observers believe he could become an even more influential voice within progressive politics, particularly as younger generations become more engaged in public life and demand leaders who reflect their concerns about economic insecurity, climate change, and social justice, making Zohran Mamdani not only a representative of a specific district in Queens, but also a symbol of a broader shift toward grassroots-driven political participation in the United States.